Hello children, we are back with the second class on semiconductors, and in this class we will be discussing types of semiconductors, but there is an important effect in fact that we missed out in the last lecture. What is the effect of temperature on electrical conductivity of semiconductors? Okay. So, effect of temperature on semiconductors. We will see this small topic. Effect of temperature on semiconductors. Children, we understand the semiconductors are covalently bonded compounds and they belong to the carbon family. And for electrical conduction, we also understand that the electrons will have to move from valence band to the conduction band. This is the scenario. Electrons already located here and they have to move to the conduction band. Clear? Now, in case of metals, we found that this gap is already bridged because metals contain free electrons which are in an extremely high energy state. Okay? But in case of semiconductors, we have this energy gap of around 1 electron volt, right? We very well understand therefore that at 0 Kelvin, these electrons in semiconductors will not have enough energy to move to the conduction band. Clear? However, when we increase temperature, then these electrons will be thermally excited and they will have enough energy to move to the conduction band. So, see, in case of metals, the electrons are already here, right? If I depict this block diagram for metals, so this is the valence band and this is the conduction band. This gap is already bridged. We discussed this. So, electrons are not here. Even at 0 Kelvin, electrons are here in the conduction band. But in case of semiconductor, the electrons are here at 0 Kelvin. They are not here. They need to overcome this 1 electron gap of energy difference, right? So, from this discussion, we conclude and be very sure about this, that when we will increase temperature, then electrical conductivity of semiconductors will increase. And when electrical conductivity of semiconductors will increase, then what will happen to the resistivity? Decrease. So, we can summarize, we have already done this in current electricity chapter, that with increase in temperature, resistivity of metals will increase. However, with increase in temperature, resistivity of semiconductors will decrease. So, we conclude that with increase in temperature, conductivity of semiconductors will increase, and graphically here we go. In fact, you have already done, this is temperature. For semiconductor, the graph comes like this, it decreases. Clear? So, you have done this graph. In fact, in current electricity, we have already discussed this. So, with increase in temperature, electrical conductivity of semiconductors will increase. Okay? But that does not mean that we will go on increasing temperature and the conductivity will go on increasing, not like this. There will be a certain saturation temperature after which you cannot increase the conductivity any more. Okay? So, children, we did effect of temperature on semiconductors, the resistivity will decrease and conductivity will increase. Now, children, we will be discussing types of semiconductors. Types of semiconductors. How many types of semiconductors actually we have? There are two types. One is called intrinsic semiconductor. Intrinsic semiconductor, and the other type is called extrinsic semiconductor. Extrinsic semiconductor. Okay, there are two types of semiconductors we deal with. One is called intrinsic semiconductor and the other one is called extrinsic semiconductor. So, let us discuss what exactly is an intrinsic semiconductor. You see, natural semiconductors are called intrinsic semiconductor, meaning a semiconductor in its natural or pure form is called intrinsic semiconductor. As it is found in nature, we are not adding anything to it. If it comes in pure form, is called intrinsic semiconductor. Let me tell you one important thing also. Silicon and germanium are most preferred semiconductors that we use today. Gallium is there, tellurium is there, they are also semiconductors, but silicon and germanium are mainly used by us because the energy gap is also very low for them. Now, often they ask a question, carbon belongs to the same group to which the silicon and germanium belong, so why carbon is not a semiconductor? Okay, carbon shows almost all the properties with silicon and germanium, so like catenation and all those things. So why carbon is not a semiconductor? The reason is that in case of generally, in case of silicon and germanium, the energy gap is in the range of around 1 electron volt, right? But in case of carbon, the energy gap becomes almost 6 electron volt, which is the same as the case of insulators, right? So you will answer if they ask you why carbon does not act as a semiconductor. The reason is that in case of carbon, the energy gap is very large, of the order of around 6 electron volt, therefore carbon cannot act as a semiconductor. Clear? Now we come to the topic that we are discussing, intrinsic semiconductor. We will be defining what is an intrinsic semiconductor. A semiconductor in pure form is called intrinsic semiconductor. Is called intrinsic semiconductor. So this is intrinsic semiconductor. Now, how exactly this intrinsic semiconductor works? Let's say this duster. Children, intrinsic semiconductors are covalent in nature, tetracovalent in nature. Like one silicon is surrounded by, that was nicely, 4 silicon atoms. Okay, there is one silicon atom above it. Now, number of covalent electrons and number of valence electrons, silicon is how much? 4. That means this silicon has got 1 electron here, another electron here, then this electron and this electron. These electrons belong to the centrally located silicon atom. Now it is binding through covalent bond with the surrounding silicon atoms in the neighborhood. So this will be shared pair of electrons, and this is how each silicon atom is located. So you can see the tetracovalency of silicon results in formation of 4 covalent bonds around it, right? So this silicon has got how many? 8 electrons, right? Octet only satisfied. Now similarly, this silicon will be surrounded by 4 more silicon atoms. This will be surrounded by how many? 4 more silicon atoms. Similarly, 4 here and 4 atoms out here. And then this will be like an extended structure. Catenation is there. So we can see the silicon atoms will be linked this way, producing what? A sheet-like structure. Now, how it conducts? So this is silicon in pure state. If I draw germanium in pure state, I'll just be replacing silicon by germanium. So this is germanium, G. It will be surrounded by 4 other germanium atoms, like this. These are shared pair of electrons. And again here we have 4 bonds coming up. So this is intrinsic germanium. So you can draw either for germanium or you can draw for silicon. Clear? Now how exactly does silicon conduct or germanium conduct? And will you be preferring germanium compared to silicon? Why? Why germanium will be preferred over silicon? Anybody? The reason is because germanium has got smaller energy gap, around 0.69 to 0.72. Understand? And silicon has around 1 to 1.02, right? So what is the electrical conductivity? How it takes place? Electrical conductivity in intrinsic semiconductors. Intrinsic semiconductor. Children, how this electrical conductivity takes place in case of intrinsic semiconductors? Let's understand through the bond first. Here you can see these electrons are held by what? Covalent bonds. But in case of semiconductors, these covalent bonds are not very strong. They are not very strong, right? Now what is happening is that these electrons can be thermally excited. They can be thermally excited to break free from these bonds. Okay? So at 0 Kelvin, these are solid bonds, strong bonds, because the electron do not have energy at all to break free from the bonds. But as the temperature rises and reaches up to the room temperature, which is nearly 27 degrees Celsius, 25 actually, let's say 300 Kelvin. So at 0 Kelvin, these bonds are strong bonds and the electrons are not free to move. But as the temperature starts rising, then the energy of electron also goes on increasing. At about 300 Kelvin, these electrons gain enough energy to break free from these weak covalent bonds. Right? So if I use the valence shell and conduct the band diagram, then this is how will we discuss this. Make sure you are understanding. This is valence band, electrons are located out here, and this is conduction band, and this gap is around how much, children? Eg is nearly 1 electron volt. So at 0 Kelvin, electrons remain in the valence band. They do not have enough energy to move to the conduction band. However, with an increase in energy, the average energy of these electrons will increase according to Boltzmann's equation 3/2 kT, where K is Boltzmann's constant and T is absolute temperature. At about 300 degrees Celsius, 300 Kelvin, sorry, at around room temperature, these electrons will be excited enough to break free from these bonds and move from valence band to the conduction band. So let's see very interesting thing. Now at about 300 Kelvin, roughly, more is better, but minimum 300 Kelvin, these electrons move to the conduction band. So when they move to the conduction band, the scenario is something like this. This is valence band and this is conduction band. So suppose I have shown 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Suppose I have shown 5 electrons. All these electrons have migrated now to the which band? Conduction band. So when they move to the conduction band, then these electrons are not here. These electrons are not here. Listen nicely. These electrons are moved here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So what happens to the spaces occupied by these electrons? These electrons become positively charged. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Right? So these 5 electron deficient spots have been created, and these electron deficient spots, they carry positive charges and we call them holes. What do you call holes? So don't think that only these many electrons were there. Not that only these 5 electrons were there. No? The more electrons are here. More electrons are here. So the moment these positive charges are created, that will say nicely. Look here. The moment these positive charges are created out here, then what they will do? These positive charges will set up an electric field. What they will do? They will set up an electric field. And now they will be attracting these inner electrons. So what will happen? These electrons which are located here, they will be moving towards holes, because holes will be attracting. And when these electrons will come here, when they will come to the holes, then they will neutralize the charge of holes, and subsequently they will be promoted to the conduction band. So see now, these holes will be neutralized, but these holes will be created. It's a beautiful phenomenon. That means as the electrons will continue to move up, the holes will be produced down. You understand? Like here, one row of electron comes here, then one row of holes is produced. Right? The next moment, these holes become again what? Negatively charged. and the electrons will be carried up. So one row of electrons is created here, then another row of holes will be produced. Again one row of electrons will be created here, then another row of holes will be produced. Clear? So electrons will move up. This is how the electrons are moving, and holes will moving where? Down. Right? So electrons and holes will moving in opposite direction. In opposite direction. Clear? The interesting thing, if one electron moves up, one hole is created. If two electrons will move, two holes will be produced. So you have to know that these holes and electrons are being released thermally. They are being released what? Thermally. We are not inducing from outside. Right? More the temperature, more the holes and electrons will be set up in the circuit, and both will move in opposite direction. So therefore we say that in pure semiconductors, number of electrons in unit volume is equal to number of holes in unit volume. Clear? So we will say here, for pure semiconductor, children, you have to remember electron density Ne is equal to hole density, and we are writing this as Ni. Electron density is equal to hole density is equal to Ni, means each has a value equal to Ni, and this Ni, the number of charge carriers, these are what? Ni basically refer to what? Charge carrier density. Number of electrons in unit volume is called electron density. Similarly, this hole density, and each has a value equal to Ni. And Ni can be easily calculated by using a formula. Ni is equal to A0 T cube e to the power minus Eg by kT. You should know this equation, where A0 is a constant, A0 is a what? Constant. So charge carrier density Ni is A0 T cube e to the power minus Eg by kT, where k is of course Boltzmann's constant, Eg is energy, A0 is a constant, T is absolute temperature. Clear? So you have to know that in a pure semiconductor, the number of electrons per unit volume is equal to number of holes per unit volume, and this can be increased. The electron hole density can be increased by increasing temperature. Clear? Okay. So once you have understood this, now children will be seeing impure semiconductors or extrinsic semiconductors. Extrinsic semiconductors. What are extrinsic semiconductors? Now children, if I ask you how we can make a semiconductor a better conductor of electricity, then you will say we can do so by increasing the number of electrons and holes, right? Now we know that the number of electrons and holes that you can produce on the average by thermally exciting them is very limited. Clear? Is very less. So now the question is, how we can increase the number of charge carriers? In fact, for increasing the number of charge carriers, we add some other element to a pure semiconductor. What do? We add some other element to a pure semiconductor, okay? And this other element which is added is called impurity. It's called what? Impurity. So if you are given a pure semiconductor, and to the pure semiconductor you add an impurity, then the semiconductor becomes what? Extrinsic semiconductor. Extrinsic means impure. Okay, we can also write impure semiconductor. Impure semiconductor. So the purpose of having an impure semiconductor is to have greater number of charge carriers, either greater number of electrons or greater number of holes. Clear? Now the process of adding this impurity, to a pure semiconductor is called doping. It's called doping. And the impurities which added, they are called dopants. You must have done in chemistry, I think, dopants, doping, yes. So we'll be defining what is extrinsic semiconductor. A semiconductor is called extrinsic semiconductor. A semiconductor to which an impurity has been added is called extrinsic semiconductor. Okay, and you should know the process of adding. So here are these key terms, children. The process of adding impurity is called doping, and impurity is called dopant. Clear? So how many types of dopants we can have? There are basically two types of dopants. One is called a trivalent dopant, a trivalent impurity, and the other one is called pentavalent impurity. Okay, so we have types of dopants that you should be knowing. Types of dopants or impurities. There are two kinds of impurities we will have. First one is called trivalent impurity. Trivalent impurity. Trivalent impurity is also called acceptor impurity. It's also called acceptor impurity. And then we have the other impurity which is added is called pentavalent impurity. Pentavalent impurity, and pentavalent is also called donor impurity. It's also called donor Okay, so we'll understand what is trivalent impurity and what is pentavalent impurity. Okay. Now coming to this trivalent impurity, children, what is trivalent impurity? As the name implies, trivalent impurity means there are 3 valence electrons. How many valence electrons? 3 valence electrons. We can take the case of aluminium, for example. We can take the case of indium, for example. Indium is the most preferred one. They have how many electrons in the last orbit? 3. Clear? Aluminum is generally not used. So what is trivalent impurity? An element having 3 valence electrons. 3 valence electrons is called trivalent impurity. Trivalent impurity. So, for example, we have indium, we have gallium, we have aluminium. They can be used as trivalent impurity. Now we have used another term here, acceptor impurity. What impurity? Acceptor. Acceptor meaning, you see, they have 3 electrons. So they need 5 more electrons for completing their octet. So this is why you call them acceptor impurity. Clear? So we have trivalent impurity. Now we have pentavalent impurity. Pentavalent impurity. So just like trivalent impurity has got 3 electrons, valence electrons, a pentavalent impurity has got how many? 5 electrons. Okay. For example, we have arsenic will be a preferred element that we will be using. Arsenic, phosphorus. These will be what? Pentavalent impurities. We will be preferring to use arsenic with 5 electrons, and then in trivalent impurity will be using indium. Clear? So we understand types of impurities. We have a trivalent impurity and a what? Pentavalent impurity. Trivalent meaning how many electrons should be there? 3 electrons in the last orbit, and pentavalence means how many? 5. Clear? So once you understood what is an extrinsic semiconductor, an extrinsic semiconductor will be obtained when we add an impurity, yes, to the pure semiconductor. So we can sum it up like this. If I am defining mathematically what is a pure what is extrinsic semiconductor, so I can write like this: pure semiconductor plus impurity. To the pure semiconductor you have added what? Impurity. So impurity can be trivalent or pentavalent impurity. Then what do we get? We get extrinsic semiconductor. Okay. So we have pure semiconductor plus impurity. Impurity can be trivalent or pentavalent impurity, and then we will be getting what? Extrinsic semiconductor. Okay. So we understood what exactly is an extrinsic semiconductor. Now children, we will be seeing types of semiconductors. How many types of semiconductors can be there? Now children will be seeing types of extrinsic semiconductors. Types of extrinsic semiconductors. How many types of extrinsic semiconductors can be there? So you understand that an extrinsic semiconductor is formed when we add an impurity to a pure semiconductor. Clear? So depending upon what type of impurity I am adding, I can have two types of semiconductors. First one is called p-type semiconductor. First one is p-type. P means positive type semiconductor, okay. And then the second one is n-type semiconductor, negative type. So there are two types of semiconductors, extrinsic. One is called p-type, the other is called n-type. Clear? Now let's see what is a p-type semiconductor. P-type semiconductor, and we will understand why we call it p-type semiconductor. You see children, if you have a pure semiconductor, and to a pure semiconductor you are adding a trivalent impurity. Which impurity? Trivalent impurity. If we add a trivalent impurity to a pure semiconductor, then the semiconductor is called p-type semiconductor. So we will be defining a semiconductor containing trivalent impurity. Impurity is called p-type semiconductor. Okay. What impurity? Trivalent impurity. Okay. So let's understand this, and it's very interesting. I want you all to understand this, that like silicon and germanium, they are what? Tetracovalent in nature, meaning one atom is surrounded by what? Four other atoms. So suppose I am doping pure silicon or pure germanium by using indium, for example, because we said if you add a trivalent impurity, then the semiconductor is called p-type. So let's see that we are adding indium. So if I add indium to a pure semiconductor, iron is added. Iron is symbol for indium. So one indium atom will be surrounded by how many germanium atoms? 4. Yes. So let's see here. One germanium, you can write silicon also is here. One germanium is here. One germanium is here, and another germanium is here. Right. So let's see how the bonding will take place now. Now see, these loops are showing the electrons contributed by germanium. Now 4 electrons will have to be contributed by what? Indium. Let's see, let's understand it. Indium has got how many on the last orbit? Only 3. So see, one it is binding out here, covalent, one covalent bond is coming up here, and one covalent bond is coming up here. So what will happen here? What will happen here? Because indium does not have what? 4th electron. So what happens? That immediately indium develops an electron deficient spot. What it does? Develops electron deficient spot, and this spot is not in the bond, it is here. And this electron deficient spot which indium is developing, in fact it will become a hole, right? And the hole is not binding with any electrons here, so it will immediately become like a free hole. It will become like what? Free hole. This hole is ready to move. So what is the role of this hole? The role of this hole is very interesting. What it does, it attracts electrons from neighboring what? Germanium atoms to fill this place and complete what? Octet configuration. You understand it? But nevertheless, the fact remains that for one indium atom, I am having how many? One free hole. This is like a free charge carrier. This is like what? Free charge carrier. It's very interesting for us to know that 1 centimeter cube of a semiconductor contains nearly 10 to the power 22 atoms, or 23 or 22 atoms you can say. Try to understand nicely. 1 centimeter cube of, if I take 1 centimeter cube of pure germanium or silicon, it will have nearly 10 to the power 22 to 10 to the power 23 atoms. Okay. And now when we add impurity, we add an extremely small amount. Otherwise, what will happen? Germanium will not be able to get, indium will not be able to get adjusted into the structural symmetry of the semiconductor, because it has to fit into the what? Tetrahedral structure, no? Into tetracovalent structure, right? So what happens? For 1 million pure atoms of the semiconductor, try to understand, 1 million atoms of pure semiconductor, we add 1 atom of impure semiconductor. Meaning the ratio of pure atoms is to impurity is 10 to the power 6 is to 1. So if I add one impurity for 1 million atoms, how many holes will it produce? One hole. This will produce one hole. Hole you can also write like plus E or E plus, both the symbols can be written. Or we can simply write H also. We can simply write H also. Now see, that means 1 million atoms of semiconductors will have one free hole. But when you look at 1 centimeter cube, the 1 centimeter cube has how many? 10 to the power 22 atoms. That means even though it looks very small, in 1 million atoms, 1 centimeter cube, I will be producing nearly how much? 10 to the power 16 holes. So don't you think this is very substantial? So by adding a trivalent impurity, for each impurity atom that I am adding, I am able to produce what? One hole. And in 1 centimeter cube volume of the pure semiconductor, I have been able to generate nearly 10 to the power 16 holes, which is very substantial. Clear? So we understand this, that in case of p-type semiconductor, please remember, in case of pure semiconductors, we are producing free holes. Free holes are being produced. So holes would be in greater number compared to that of electrons. How many holes will be extra per centimeter cube? These many holes. Now see, you studied that in case of a pure semiconductor, number of electrons is equal to number of holes. But in case of p-type semiconductor, hole density will be more than what? Electron density. Clear? So what we learned? First thing, in p-type semiconductors, so here are two things you have to know about p-type semiconductors. In p-type semiconductors, hole density is more than electron density, and holes are majority charge carriers. Clear? So this is to be kept in mind. Majority charge carriers are holes. Now what are n-type semiconductors? Let's say this. Second type is N-type semiconductor. So as the name implies, N-types means what? Negative type. Clear? So if we add a pentavalent impurity to any pure semiconductor, it becomes N-type semiconductor. Okay? If I add trivalent impurity, I get what? P-type. And remember, for one impurity atom, one hole is being produced. Similarly, if I add a pentavalent impurity, then what will happen? For each impurity atom added, one extra electron is produced. How? Let us see this. Suppose I am adding, so we will define what is N-type semiconductor. A semiconductor so here we have a semiconductor having pentavalent impurity is called N-type semiconductor. Clear? And we will be preferring to use which pentavalent impurity? I said arsenic. Okay. So let us see how this how it becomes N-type. Imagine I have this arsenic atom here sitting in the middle and surrounded by 4 silicon atoms. You can take germanium also, same thing. And children, arsenic is pentavalent, means how many electrons is having the last orbit? 5 electrons. How many? 5. But out of 5, see, arsenic will be surrounded by how many? 4 silicon atoms. Silicon atoms are tetracovalent in nature. So that means, see, interesting thing, these 4 bonds will form. So for formation of these 4 bonds, covalent bonds, arsenic is contributing what? 4 electrons. Contributing or not? See, arsenic is surrounded by 4 silicon atoms. So how many electrons arsenic is contributing? 4. And its octet is configured now. Octet is completed. But the interesting thing is that actually arsenic is having 5 electrons in the last orbit. So what happens to the 5th electron? Because 5th electron cannot bind, because octet will be what? Violated. So this 5th electron breaks away from the bond and becomes actually free. It becomes free. Just like if here we had a free hole, this electron comes here and becomes a free electron. It becomes what? Free electron. That means, children, for one impurity atom, I am having one free electron. Just like in the previous case, for one impurity atom, I had a free hole. Here I have, for each impurity atom, one free electron. So obviously, you can see that in this semiconductor, the majority charge carriers will become what? Electrons. Electron density will become more than what? Hole density. And since majority of charge carriers are negatively charged electrons, this semiconductor is called N-type semiconductor or negative type semiconductor. Okay. So 2 important points here you have to know that in N-type semiconductors, electron density, children, is more than hole density, and electrons are majority charge carriers, and electrons are majority charge carriers. So these facts are just the opposite of p-type. In p-type, hole density is more than electron density. In n-type, electron density more than hole density. Then you have holes of majority charge carriers in p-type and electrons of majority carriers on n-type semiconductors. Now children, once you understood the types of extrinsic semiconductors, and we also discussed elaborately what p-type semiconductors. Now I will be defining what is mobility of a charge carrier, and also we will be seeing a relation between conductivity and mobility of a semiconductor. Clear? But remember, unlike a metallic conductor, every time I say what is total current, then total current will be equal to sum of electron current and hole current. That is very important for you to understand. I equals to IE plus IH. For any semiconductor, if I write I will be IE plus IH. It should be kept in mind. Clear? So, we'll be seeing what is mobility, the next topic. Okay, children, we have now the next topic we will be discussing is called mobility. And mobility is denoted by mu. Remember, mu is also referred to index, but here mu is what? Mobility. And we have two types of mobilities. One mobility will be for hole, the other mobility will be for electron, because both are moving. Okay. Now suppose I have a semiconductor out here. Suppose this is a semiconductor, and across this semiconductor I connect a battery like this. Then what will happen? You can see an electric field will be set up across it, and then electrons and holes both will move. Clear? So as the charge carriers move, remember they are moving under the influence of electric field, right? So imagine a charge carrier here moves with the velocity v. Obviously it is moving in direction of electric field. So what is this? This is a hole. This is a hole. And we can have another charge carrier which is moving in opposite direction to the electric field. So this has to be electron. Clear? But both are moving. Now if I divide the velocity by electric field which I have applied across the semiconductor, then the ratio is called mobility. So we will define mobility. Mobility is defined as electric field. So children, here we have mobility is defined as the ratio of velocity and electric field. Clear? So we can sum it up like this: mobility mu is equal to V by E. Very important relation. Mobility is equal to V by E. Then if suppose I do mobility of electron, so I can write from here mobility of electron mu E will be velocity of electron by E. And similarly I have mobility of holes mu H will be VH by E. So there are two important formulas here. Mu is V by E, and then mu H is equal to VH by E. If I cross multiply, then from here I can get another relation also. Velocity of electron is equal to mobility of electron into E, and velocity of hole is equal to mobility of hole into E. Okay. So here are two important formulas that will be required by us again for an important relation will establish between the relation between mobility and conductivity of a semiconductor. Okay. So here is a small derivation I will be doing. Relation between conductivity simply sigma null, and mobility. Children, we will be doing one small derivation out here. Relation between conductivity and mobility. Okay. Now, when I apply potential difference across a semiconductor, then charge carriers start what? Moving. Clear? Charge carriers start what? Moving, and the current is set up. So, if I say total current here, total current, children, I will be equal to IE plus IH. I will mark this as equation 1, because both the charge carriers are set into motion when you apply potential difference across the semiconductor. Clear? Now, if you remember the drift velocity equation, then I is equal to, we have done what? NeAVD. Remember now? N is electron density, E is the charge of electron, A is area of cross section, and Vd is what? The drift velocity. So if I use this equation, then electron current can be written as electron current, children, can be written as, this is electron current, can be written as I is equal to NE. N is electron density into charge of electron, that is E, A, velocity of electron is V. You can write like this now. NE. Now you may be wondering why I am writing N, not only N and NE, because here I have two charge carriers, no? So two charge densities. One is for electron, the other is for holes. So for electron I am writing NE, and you remember charge and electron and hole is what? Equal. So E will be same for both. A will be same, the area cross section will be same. This area cross section is going to be what? Same. V is the velocity of electron. But here we found that velocity of electron is mu e into capital E, right? So, but here we have V is equal to mu e into E. So if I use this formula, then electron current will be how much, children? Ne E A mu e into E. So I got electron current. And similarly, children, I can conclude that whole current IH will be, I can directly write NH. NH is what? Whole density. NH E A mu h into E. So see, I got how much is electron current, how much is the what? Whole current. I will add up these two values and I can get what? Total current from equation 1. Therefore, from equation 1, I will be how much, children? I will be IE, that is NE into E A mu into E plus NH E A mu h into E. So if I add up these two, then I get total current I is equal to, you can clearly see what is common here, small e, A and E is common. So E, A, E if I take common, then I get mu E into NE, mu h into NH. This is equation 4. So I calculated how much the total current which will flow into the semiconductor. Okay. But children, we know that I is equal to V by R. We know I is equal to V by R. Yes. Now we know that V is equal to E into L. V is equal to how much? E into L. Where E is the electric field, L is the length, right? And for resistance, children, we already know the formula. R is rho into L by A. Yes. V is equal to E into L. Here I will be writing V is equal to E into L and R will be rho into L by A. So if I put these values, then I is equal to how much do I get? I is equal to L and L are gone, E into A by rho. This is equation 5. So I got two values of I. One is I is equal to E, A into E, mu E, NE plus mu H, NH. And I equals to E into capital A by rho. Yes, I can equate these two. This derivation comes in exam. If I equate this, therefore, from equations 4 and 5, if I equate, then I get E into A by rho equals to E A into E. We have mu E NE plus mu H NH. Now we can cancel out A and A. So what do we get here? 1 by rho. 1 by rho is equal to E into mu E NE plus mu H NH. This is the relation. And we know 1 by rho is equal to how much you have? Sigma. 1 by rho is equal to sigma. So we can also write here sigma is equal to E into mu Ne plus mu H NH. Okay. So this derivation comes in your exam. Alright children. So in this class today we discuss what exactly are pure and impure semiconductors, how did they work, and also we did an important derivation on relating conductivity with mobility. Okay. So thank you very much. Only this much today.